Sleep deprivation. I was working in an incredibly stressful and abusive job. It affected me so badly that I stopped sleeping. At one point, I became so incredibly stressed that I started averaging about 3 hours of sleep per night. I'm pretty sure it caused permanent brain damage, and I was severely fucked up. I'd give you a list, but my comment would be too long. The worst bit was the hallucinations. After a few weeks of this bullshit, I started losing my fucking mind. The shop I worked in was full of silver metal clothing racks. When I entered the store in the morning or left at night, I would frequently see shadows darting amongst the clothing. I would also see reflections in the silver, darting about. The shop counter was in the center of the room, and I was constantly whipping my head around because I saw movement out of the corner of my eye, like some terrible shadow was slowly creeping up on me. Behind the shop counter, we kept a black rubbish bag, and it scared the shit out of me multiple times a day. I would be leaning against the counter, absolutely exhausted, and suddenly, out of the corner of my eye, I would spot a horrifying shadow man curled up in a ball at my feet and staring up at me. I can't express how terrifying that was. His closeness, his silence, his staring. I would jolt away in panic before realizing that it was just the fucking trash bag. Again. Shit. I would turn the corner and prepare myself for the black mass, and my heart would still do a little somersault when I saw it, because by this point, my brain was automatically afraid whenever I saw it. I also had sleep paralysis most nights. Still, none of this was the worst bit. The worst bit was the man with a backwards head. Be me. Had a particularly bad sleep last night, and a particularly long shift that day. Sitting at the very back of the bus, heading home. It's a sunny afternoon. The bus is full of noisy people. Normally, I dislike crowded buses, but today, I'm glad for the crowd. I'm nodding off, and people watching is a good way to keep myself conscious. I people watch for a few minutes, then a man gets on the bus, and I forget about everything else. I am utterly captivated by him. The man sits right at the front of the bus, in that weird alcove where 2 sets of seats are facing each other, 2 seats facing forward, and 2 seats facing backwards. He sits in one of the forward-facing seats, with his back to me, and I am utterly entranced by his hair. It's so beautiful, glossy, matte, long, short, wavy, straight. Wait, what? I realize that my brain is kind of slipping, and I decide to focus on something else to regain my focus. I look down at the man's neck and shoulders instead, and I am fucking terrified, because his body is facing me, but his head is facing away from me. His head is on backwards. And somehow I know, in the pit of my stomach, that this entire time that I was watching him, he was somehow watching me. I jolt violently with fright. The bus is empty. All is silent. The sun is shining and I shiver. My hands are shaking, and when I get off at my stop 2 minutes later, I tear up from fright, and keep looking behind me, in case the man with the black hair and backwards head is creeping up behind me. That night, I go straight to bed and sleep for 40 hours straight. When I wake up, I sleep some more. I don't know, it's such a lame story, but I still feel sick thinking about that man. There is a damn good reason sleep deprivation is considered torture. It really is. Met an old English lady through a social club. Call her Rebecca. She and I got to talking about books recently. I happened to be reading Algernon Blackwood, and our conversation turned to mysticism and horror stories and past lives, etc. She told me several stories. When Rebecca's daughter was little, around 5 years old or so, she used to get these weird bouts where she would grow silent and go off and sit by herself. Rebecca would ask her what was wrong. Her daughter would explain how she missed her of her family. The girl described this family as a young blonde girl and a beautiful lady, and described herself as the lady's husband. The little girl said she remembered being on a boat and the boat crashing, and then she got dragged into water and could not breathe. That was her last memory apparently. Rebecca's daughter grows up, has her own daughter, Maddie. Maddie does the same thing. She often gets really quiet and seems sad. Talks about her old house where I died. Maddie describes how someone broke into the house one night and killed her in her sleep. Very heavy shit for a kid to say, lol. so the subject is always avoided. But one day, Maddie complains of a sharp pain in her neck, says in an offhanded way, "That's where the person stabbed me when I died." Coincidentally, Maddie has a very clear, dark birthmark in the same spot. Occasionally complains of pain there. Rebecca concludes by telling me about the shadow people in her childhood home. Whenever she was alone, she saw them. Basically said that they were tall shadows, humanoid in shape, but incredibly slender, and tall enough to reach the ceiling. They used to walk around the house hunched over, paying no attention to her. Then they'd disappear. Always happened when she was alone, although her sister later told her she'd seen something similar, but apparently, she only ever saw them once. Some context. In 2017, my best friend Marvin invited me to go hunting for the first time in Clark County, MS. His family had been hunting on this guy's land for a while now. We were both living in college, and I took up the offer. On the first night, he shot a buck he had been hunting for 7 years, a big old 9-pointer. We were absolutely hunting illegally with night vision scopes, and also flashing them with lights. On the second night, I shot my first 8-pointer. The land was really nice, beautiful. The entire trip was serene and very relaxing. In 2018, Marv invited me back out to Clark County for a weekend in December. This time, it was just me and him, as his dad was a little too sick to join us. Previously, I hunted with Marv, but this time, he lent me one of his rifles and let me hunt on my own. On the first night, we arrived at the land and he dropped me off in a location he called the backyard, since it was towards the rear of the property. It was a large green patch with a big oak tree in the middle, with a deer feeder close to it. Marv dropped me off at this little rinky-dink shack and set off to another hunting spot almost 10 minutes away. The shack was really flimsy and looked like it would fall over with a big wind. In the center was a chair, and there were 4 windows, one in front, 2 on either side, and one small one where you could see behind you. The door locked on a shitty little hook, but I wasn't too worried about it. Marv had dropped me off around 3 or 4 p.m. and would pick me up once it turned dark. For a few hours, everything was nice. No deer, but I was not interested in shooting any. I was more interested in killing a hog, since they are big and nasty. I was pretty much just relaxing, taking in the scenery, enjoying myself. Suddenly, it got really quiet. I could still hear the wind, but the birds had stopped making noises. Squirrels were not jumping around, and I did not hear the distant mooing of the cows somewhere else on the property. I got tense, and I felt like something was amiss. Then, from behind me, I could hear these heavy footsteps approaching me. Let me clarify something. They sounded like they were stalking me. This did not sound like an animal that was just walking up. The leaves on the ground were not crunching. They were being brushed, like something was moving very carefully. I grabbed the hilt of my knife and just sat there, perfectly still, as these footsteps approached me. I did not smell anything, but the closer it approached, the more I internally panicked. A part of me really wanted to look at what was making the noise, but a loud voice in my head kept saying, "Stare ahead, do not look. You will die if you look at it." Then it reached the right window, and it began exhaling. There were no inhales, just a heavy, rough, deep exhale that sounded like an obese man heaving. It sat there, heaving and exhaling, but I just kept staring at the tree, not moving a muscle. I don't remember shaking, but I do remember being terrified. I kept my breathing as subdued and quiet as possible, just doing everything I can to not move. This went on for 10 minutes, just something breathing next to me and me being terrified. Then it stopped. I did not hear it walk away. It just disappeared. It was still deathly quiet, and I refused to move for a time until I could hear the sounds of birds returning. At some point, a family of deer and little fawns sprung out across the field, and I felt safe enough to text Marv to come fucking get me. Unfortunately, I had no service, so I had to sit there until sunset since I did not know how to get out, and I refused to walk around with whatever the fuck that was being out there. Sunset arrived, and it got dark. Marv still was not there to get me. That's when I heard a gunshot echo from far away, and I realized he was still trying to hunt a deer, so I had no idea how long I was going to stay there. It got real dark, and there was no moon out to shine anything up. I did have a huge flashlight, and I kept flashing the tree line, prepared to shoot whatever looked unnatural. Fortunately, nothing happened. Marv showed up, picked me up, and we went back to our cottage. When we got there, I told him everything that happened. He started freaking out because his little brother Danny had the same experience, but on another part of the property. Danny was hunting by himself a few years ago in a raised hunting shack that needed a tall ladder to get there. At some point, he heard something walk up to his shack and stand right underneath him. It spooked him so much that he called Marv and his dad to come and pick him up. He did not hear any breathing, but it spooked him badly. Just a month ago, I was out with my girlfriend on a quadruple date with Marv and two of his cousins. While the girlfriends were socializing, Marv and I were recalling the word stories, and, as I told the story, Jody, one of his cousins, said that he had the same thing happen to him as Danny. He was in the same spot as Danny too. Footsteps approached him, but there was nothing there. The owner of the property is a nice guy, and he's never mentioned any strange things on it. I don't think he did anything because I would have heard him walk away. Plus, why would he risk getting shot by a hunter? I still don't know what exactly I experienced, but I think it was a Sasquatch. I don't think the Squatch is a physical creature. I think it's a forest spirit that can show itself when it wants to. It's why nobody's found one, and most of the found footage turns out to be fake. Last October, me and 5 friends rent a cabin for the weekend in the middle of nowhere. Plan to alternate between being drunk and high the entire time. We are all stupid excited Friday when we arrive. We all road crammed together in one car. Get everything set up for a campfire in the woods and get wasted. Friend, Jay, is getting over an ex, crying like a bitch. We all try to cheer him up. We all tell drunk stories. Near midnight, we are about a 10-minute hike away from the cabin, which itself is a good 20-minute drive away from a real road. We let the campfire go low, and me and another friend, S, are trying to get it started again while Jay is almost passed out behind me, drunk blabbering. Jay goes quiet all of a sudden. Turn around and see Jay standing behind a girl in a dress, no shoes. Remember, in the middle of the cold-ass woods in October. Jay is staring at her. He gets out his phone and calls someone, hangs up after a couple of seconds. Girl is just looking at us while he does this. I ask her if she is lost. She moves her head side to side, not a shake, but like left ear to left shoulder, then right ear to right shoulder. She keeps doing it. Jay is freaked out, looks totally sober. S goes to Jay and tries to calm him down. I ask the girl if she wants to come back to the cabin with us. She says yes. Seems more normal now. The other 2 friends, K and M, pack up our stuff and walk with Strange Girl, while me, S and Jay walk ahead. Jay says Strange Girl looks exactly like his ex, thought it was her. He called his ex to see if she would pick up. She didn't. He is convinced it is her and she is fucking with him. I tell him the girl is probably some crazy religious guy's daughter or something that just runs around the woods for fun. Really, I thought she was homeless. Jay is kind of convinced, wants to go back and talk to her. He seems drunk again, and it is not hard to get him to go to bed instead. Me and S talk bullshit till the rest get back. K and M get back, no Strange Girl. They said Strange Girl would alternate between sounding perfectly normal, talking about being at school or working at some restaurant, then start doing strange gestures and waiting for us to respond. M asked her how she got in the woods, and the girl said, "Head down." She started saying that to everything. M and K stopped talking to her. When they got close to cabin, they looked around, and she was about 50 feet behind them. They walked in without, guessing she was still out there. We all talk about how strange it is. Eventually all go to sleep. I wake up. It's still dark. Jay is making a racket, messing with the supplies. Look around and see Strange Girl is standing to his side. Her dress is covered in dirt, scabs on her knees and arms. I get up and ask Jay what the fuck. He says he heard a noise outside, went to check it out. Did not see anything, but noticed 2 tires on the car were flat. Tells me he has some tire repair stuff in the supplies. What about her? I ask him. Strange Girl was outside by the trees. He invited her back. I want to tell him that he is a dumb fuck and she probably popped the tires, but she is right there, so I just give him the stink eye. He finds the tire repair gel and a pump. I say I'll help him, and we go outside. I tell him how strange girl was to K&M. He blows it off and says she seems nice. You just miss your ex, you dumb fuck. We get the car, and I see the 2 flats. Find a nail in each one. We start patching them. S comes out while we work. Says she woke up because strange girl tried to sleep beside her. She probably saw K&M together and wanted to make a matching pair, Jay suggested. I think that's what it was though, like she was trying to learn. She talks to us while we wait for the tire stuff to dry. She also thinks strange girl is homeless and we should make her leave. Jay vehemently denies, says she'll make him feel like not a fifth wheel. You'll be worse than that when she slits your fucking throat. I wouldn't do that. Strange girl is at the door to the cabin. Overheard us, I guess. I apologize for talking about her. Say we were joking. She says she knows a joke. Why is the chicken dead? Why? Because it crossed the road. She makes a weird sound, like a high-pitched snort, then smiles at us. Her teeth are blindingly white. She says she'll be back. Walks back into the woods. We all go in cabin. It is a wreck. Furniture slammed all over. K&M are gone. S says it was fine when she was in there 20 minutes ago. We look around the cabin. No sign of K&M. We clean up the cabin, but one of the chairs is snapped in half. K&M come back. They are all scratched up and scared. They say that strange girl started flipping out, so they ran out front and did not see anyone, so they ran to the woods. They heard weird shit, so they came back. There is no way they walked outside without us seeing them. There is only one door to the cabin. We all just sit there for a while, thinking that shit out. Strange girl comes back sometime later, covered in more dirt and maybe blood. She is dragging a dead deer, neck ripped out. Casually, she says, I found you guys some food, lying in the woods. Jay asks her where she went. Hid the keys. Ask her if she means Jay's car keys. She says yes, still casual. I ask her why. She says so we won't leave early. She wants us to stay. We all just stare. She drags the deer with her and goes towards a tree to gut it. I notice her foot got really fucked up. She is basically walking on her ankle. S and K are having panic attacks by this point, screaming and crying. We try to calm them down. We sit in silence while strange girl strips the deer and cuts off strips from them. She waddles back, asks us to make a fire to cook the deer. I say okay and do it. Everyone else refuses to even talk to her. I make the fire and she cooks the deer by dangling the pieces in her hand over the fire. I say nothing. Very awkward, her staring at me. I notice that everyone behind me is whispering. Strange girl is singing while she cooks. It's a weird lullaby that I know because my mom used to sing it. Scoop you up, shush you round, all the frowns go upside down. I try to smoothly step away from SJ and towards group. Jay says he has a spare key to the car and that we should get the tires on and leave. Strange girl is staring at us. I have a plan, but we all have to eat the deer. We all eat an SG deer strip. I have to hold back vomit thinking of her holding them like that. I tell SG how good they were. She smiles at me. It's too wide. I tell her that we will need another deer for tomorrow. She smiles even wider. She says she'll go get some. She is walking more normally now. Still kind of a march instead of a walk. I sit there, watching her walk away. As soon as she is out of sight, everyone is running around, tripping and dropping shit. K&M pack up the trunk, while me, J, and S inflate the tires and get them back on the car. By the time we are almost done, it's been about as long as she was gone last time. Weird smell in the air. Everyone is cramming in the car. Girls are crying/whimpering again. Hear a bump when Jay pulls out. We were in such a hurry. We forgot to get the jack out from under the car. Jay runs back and gets it. Almost falls on his ass, getting back in the car. He goes top speed for his shitty car. Doesn't slow down till we hit the actual road. We don't talk about strange girl ever again. Except for once, when we are drunk together. S says she still dreams about her. I had finally stopped thinking of all this until last week when I asked my mom where she got that lullaby from. She told me she made it up when I was a baby. Not creepy, just really, really fucking awful. Be me. Probably around 12 to 13 at the time. Friend starts acting really off. Ask him what's wrong, and he always says he's fine, but I know he's not. Just brush it off. He's probably just been having a rough week. See something fall out of his backpack. Go to pick it up. It's a note of some kind. Unfold it and read it. Basically the whole thing is just him talking about how he's been cutting himself recently and how he's felt super depressed. Go tell the counselor. Show her the note. Bitch gets mad at me for going through other people's stuff and how I've been coming to the office too much lately. Thinks I'm doing it as an excuse to get out of class. Blah blah blah. Lots of stupid shit. Gets super pissed off at her. Tell her my friend's life could be in danger, but I don't think she fucking cares. She basically forces me back into class. Tried to tell principal about it. She doesn't seem to care either. Super worried for friend, but I was really fucking stupid as a kid, and I did not say anything about it to him, because I thought it might make it worse. 3 weeks later, I hear he's in the psych ward for attempting to take his own life. Literally never hear from him again. Sometimes I wonder if he's still alive, but I honestly doubt it. If he is, I just hope he's doing better now. I don't know how to green text this one, so I will just tell it. When I was growing up, I lived in a very rural area, and I went to this elementary school that was, for whatever reason, in a section of this giant brick building located at the end of a dirt road. There weren't many other students, probably 12 kids in total went to it, and most of them were in my grade. The weirdest thing about the building was, on the outside it looked massive. I remember even my mom mentioning it a few times while talking on the phone, but the inside was tiny. It was clearly a 2-story building, but there weren't any stairs, and only about 6 rooms you could actually get to, and the largest was the gym, which was in the basement. The reason why it was so tiny is that the rest of the building was bricked up. I always thought it was weird how the doors in the place were laid out, and how there were windows in some classrooms that looked out to bricks, but this was just because they had bricked off a lot of the hallways. Skip ahead a decade and a half. I'm in my 20s, and I've gotten into urbex as a hobby. I had to take a visit down to my hometown because my grandma was in hospice care, and I wanted to be with her in her final days. The story is not about that, however. I was stuck in town for a week or two because the shitty rental car I had broke down, and there were only like 2 guys working at the mechanic shop in town. I had also learned that this elementary school I had grown up in had closed down not too long ago, just a few months actually. Generally, my rule with urbex is to bring at least 2 other people, and obviously, never vandalize. But curiosity got the better of me. I borrowed a crowbar from my dad's shed and took a trip up that old dirt road. Most of the windows, aside from the windows that did not lead into the classrooms, were behind iron bars, most likely to prevent nosy guys like me from getting in. I traced the outside for about half an hour, trying to find a way in, when I picked up on the fact that one of the sets of bars had gotten real rusty and real loose, ironically, just near the front. I'm not that strong of a guy, but these things were corroded to the point that I managed to break them off with just a quick tug with the crowbar. The windows were unlocked, thankfully, and after struggling to get them open, I climbed in. The lights were still on in this bricked off part of the building, for some reason, and it was real cold. I could hear the buzz of AC somewhere, which was kinda strange to me because I had vivid memories of the teachers opening windows because there wasn't any AC. There wasn't really much to comment on about the first floor. It was just really dusty, mostly blank concrete and laminated floor. I felt like I was going insane in that place because I could swear I kept going in circles. I was trying to find some stairwell to the next floor because the first floor was just empty rooms and hallways, and I got the bright idea to leave some kind of mark for myself to know where I had and hadn't been. I took out my pocket knife, carved an axe into the laminated wood, and walked back the way I came. I turned a corner and I saw the X again, right where I carved it. I turned around, more hallway, this time leading to an unopened red door. I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about this, but as soon as I walked up to the door, it swung open, into one of the classrooms, except the windows that should have pointed outside were also bricked up. I stepped in, heard a loud clang, and when I spun on my heel, the door was gone. I tried walking to the other end of the classroom, to the door that should lead out into the main hallway, but it was like running in a nightmare. It felt like I was waist high in swamp water. My legs felt heavy, and I could hear my heartbeat. It got hard to breathe, like I was underwater, and I fell to one knee, staring at the ground. When I looked back up, I was in the same classroom, but the windows were normal. I could breathe again. I looked back behind me, and my soul nearly jumped out of my fucking body as I saw some dark figure slam that red door shut before it vanished right in front of me, just submerging back into the stained wallpaper. I got the fuck out of there at that point. Had nightmares about that place for a few days after, being a kid again and seeing that red door. I noticed too afterwards, this is the part that fucks with me and makes me think I'm going insane. But I've been hearing shit ever since then. I will hear thumping above me like someone is stomping on the second floor while I'm outside in the middle of a field, or I will hear doors slamming or being unlocked right next to my ear while I'm driving or listening to music. I've talked with a bunch of shrinks about this, and they said I don't exhibit any other signs of schizophrenia or psychosis beyond these auditory hallucinations. Either I fucked with something I shouldn't have by going past those bricked up hallways, or I got fucked up by some type of gas leak. Be me. Big fan of hiking and urban exploration. Scheduled to go to work. Beautiful day out. Call out.exe. Paid time off.jpg. Decide to take a day off and go on a hike I've been eyeing for months now. Run through what looks like an old abandoned camp or town in the middle of the woods. Sun shines bright. Managed to pack necessary hiking gear. Food and weed lol. Following map and basic GPS on my phone. A few hours of hardy walking. Finally make it to the overgrown and broken down cabins and bungalows. Cryptic aura intensifies. Something dark about this place, but don't let that kill my vibe. Chalk it up to my nervous energy. Light up a small joint that I brought. Sent photo of abandoned cabin to friend. Cool, huh? Didn't respond yet. Continue exploring around and put in headphones to jam out to music. Sun starts to set. Lighting and red colors fill the sky. World turns into watercolor painting. Aesthetic but eerie. Stop to stand perfectly still and take out headphones to listen to the forest. The woods are dead quiet. Not a single cricket. Uneasy. Suddenly hear distant shouting. Or maybe crying. Laughing? Can't tell. Send shivers down spine though. Stand frozen. Skin goosebumping. Very distant noise. Laughing/crying sound gets louder. Begin to run. Cabins up ahead. Screaming sounds less than 200 feet away. Turn neck around while jogging. See it. Our eyes meet. Oh shit. Legs start running before brain fully processes. Run like I never have before. Adrenaline making heart go burr. Behind. Monstrosity echoes laughter and crying. Finally managed to fumble out phone. Snap quick pic while running across a cabin porch. Pic related. Lost it in the woods. Reach car, still sweating. I drove home like a madman the whole way. Looks at photo I took, once at a safe distance. What the fuck is this thing? Does anyone know if this thing is a cryptid? I don't know how else to describe its sound, other than like a coyote. Laughing/crying woman sound. This happened in South Dakota, by the way.